Hello and welcome back to Massalia Tales. In the previous episode, we tried to send a fleet to liberate Trapezos from Hyostan, but they had it heavily defended, and although we defeated their fleet, we were unable to take the settlement. Our client state, Parthiva, declared war on us, calling in Persia as well. That meant our forces were crushed between them and Hyostan from the north. They immediately attacked and were able to take one of the minor settlements that we had taken from Hyostan. Far away in Europe, Bendis was trying to make an attack against Rugion. It was heavily defended, so he decided to siege the enemy out with help from Eusticus. We also started a new war in Europe against the Carnutes, joining the war of the Iceni. We defeated their main force in the field, but took losses enough to pull back in order to wait before making our actual attack. Up near the northeast corner of the map, Artemios was bringing down some Hyostan forces in order to take some of their minor settlements up there. The Carnutes then made a reactionary attack heading south to attack one of our undefended settlements. So now we're in this battle. The enemy are pressing hard against our forces, and our initial lines in one key part of the battle have already broken, so it's going to be a hard fight from here. Surprisingly, taking stock midway through the last decade of the 3rd century BC, we find it was the council's nearly forgotten right-hand man, Artemios, with the largest personal domain. Over a decade of war, he had achieved the goals of his mentor Eusebius in restoring the Hellenic kingdom of Archebosphorus to power. But at the same time, he had, at the behest of his eager troops, conquered masses of the steppe for the Massalian council. With the war against Hyostan, he had yet more chances to expand, pressing eastward towards the Caspian Sea. His personal power was growing rapidly, but as an isolated politician with virtually no influence at home, it was to the rest of the Republic as if he was doing nothing at all. So we're back in our defense against the Carnutes. In the center of the settlement, there are units that routed and have then come back that we're trying to hunt down with some of our own units freed up from the victorious parts of the fight. So here it's Hoplites pressing against these swordsmen, getting a nice downhill engagement on that road. Over here as well, some of the enemy's light swords charging into another stray unit of Hoplites. So we're going to bring these guys down. We need to take them out because the enemy have captured the center of the settlement, giving us a morale debuff. So we need to get it back to improve our situation. Our general is in the most trouble, as you can see here, fighting surrounded, fighting frontally against a unit that's better than it, so it's going to struggle even if it was just a one-on-one engagement here. But of course the enemy have plenty more units, including this very heavy spear unit led by their general fighting behind. So I was surprised that the general has held on this long, fighting in a really bad situation for morale. We do have those archers who are supporting us. They are firing into these light swords here, a unit vulnerable to arrow fire, and there they actually rout from the losses taken to that archer fire. So that's going to be very handy. The archers will now switch target to start engaging the heavy infantry instead. Not going to do all that much because they are so heavy, and those archers are basically out of ammo at this point in the battle. They've already gone through a couple of other regiments. So over here with the fight on the west side of the town, it's mostly enemy spearmen that we're fighting our own spears, and we've got militia who've come in behind the enemy to start hitting their morale, and it's kind of working. You can see 2 units there, considering leaving, are already damaged because they've taken a lot of archer fire themselves. I had another unit of militia that had run out of the settlement to go and chase some enemy slingers. They've successfully fought them and driven them off the field, so they're going to start coming back. Meanwhile, at the western approach, enemy units finally starting to rout. Our men too busy celebrating to actually try and kill them, and that is going to be a problem because the enemy has good morale, so these routing units are just going to come back if we can't deplete them or keep putting pressure on them constantly. There's still other units that haven't routed, so the units nearby will need to help out with that engagement. These routing units are going to be harassed by archers as they go out, sending all of the out of ammunition archers to just harass these units. They have so low stats that they really can't kill them even fighting a routing unit, but just being under attack should stop them from coming back. Some other archers have come to try and help the general. I rear attacked the enemy's heavy spears, but at that very moment my general just routs, so really not going to have any effect whatsoever. Going to have to get out of there right away. And these other Hoplites, having finished off the enemy's units that were inside the town and recaptured the point, they're coming over to help. Too late, but they are going to be just in time to stop the enemy getting much further into the settlement. The enemy focusing their javelin fire on those archers, which is handy because of course their loss at this stage doesn't really matter. And now we're going to have a straight engagement, a little bit more fair this time, catching all of the enemy units on the front of the phalanx. So that's a much more stable arrangement, and my archers just going to run to set up behind the enemy. All we can really do with the archers is make some very ineffective rear attacks. They basically won't kill anyone, but being attacked by anything has the same morale shock, so if the enemy gets down to steady or wavering, hitting them with an archer attack might be able to rout them. Those spear units from the west side earlier that I mentioned actually did come back from routing after we didn't kill them, so our men celebrating so much has caused a little bit of a nuisance there. We're going to have to chase them down. Here comes that archer charge, the men just rushing in. The enemy were already wavering actually as my men came in, so this has the potential to do some damage. They're still wavering. We're starting to see some breakages there as well as we hit them all across the line. The enemy's general in there isn't going to be too perturbed by this, but those two sword units do actually rout, and that's going to be absolutely critical. I didn't even expect that to happen, so this was a bit of a lucky break as far as I'm concerned. It's coming in and surrounding the swordsmen, making sure that they take a lot of casualties as they go out, so they're not going to come back from routing, and that's going to mean we have two hoplite units to fight the enemy's general, and that's going to be okay, especially because now we can fight the enemy's general with him totally surrounded, so his morale is going to drop faster than usual. So other units starting to catch the enemy's remaining stragglers out here. I don't know what we caught on camera just here, some sort of mysterious ghostly apparition, a big pile of bodies just being flung around by my militia apparently. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, a tiny bit later, some of the enemy units we were attacking here and there across the town started to rout, and that actually caused a chain rout. The enemy's general went without really having to kill his troops, so that's fantastic, and the battle actually ends in a close victory. So it was all about that archer charge. That totally turned things around, so well done to the archers in melee. It's a close victory. The town successfully defended, which is going to be very nice indeed. That's the Carnutes' main force. Their other main force was defeated in a previous battle, and now this is all they have. Pretty much wiped out. As you can see, our losses, not even a single regiment, not that it matters too much in a garrison. Over 400 captures, over 2,000 kills. A fantastic result from that battle. The Carnutes' fate is probably sealed now.
Stay those hands! If I see a single Massalian lay a finger on these men, I will serve those bloody fingers to them as their last meal. You hear me? Who do you think you are to say anything of these people? These warriors are the sons of men your fathers would have known well, back when you weren't afraid to wear a neck ring in public. They came here for a fight, aye, and a fair and honourable match they lost. Now is your chance not to act like slaves to the Republic for once and do something right. Give them back their weapons. Do it, you Greek scum! Give them a week's food each and bid them farewell to return home. No doubt the lion banner will fly over their villages when they return. That is punishment enough for them.
At the start of the next turn, the highest stand forces besieged by Artemios surrender. I almost liberated them, but I decided to occupy the settlement, and that turns out to be a good decision, as you'll see in a moment. Attrition, mostly due to weather and sieges, and high civil war chance still going on as we enter this turn. So I'm going to start by just converting all the buildings as needed, but I noticed interestingly that that region is part of the same province as Alba, the region we took ages ago, and actually quite far away. It seems this province, Ponto Caspia, actually extends in a long line across the top of the Black Sea there. So quite handily, we've taken a region that was in one of my own provinces. I didn't even realise that was going to be the case. So that's very nice, going to make it more stable. The Daemons of Polymus are right away going to advance on to Sarai, the old Scythian capital. Don't need to hang around for public order reasons, and we might as well just keep pressing against Hyostam. So as for Cretius and Epaphroditos in the main part of the war, we need to decide what to do. They're sort of surrounded right now. They've got Hyostam forces to the north, lots of Egyptian forces hanging around, which are neutral in this engagement, and Parthian forces to the east. And what I'm worried about is that there are Persian forces coming from the south, because they've declared war on us, but I haven't seen them make any moves. And I've seen before that they do have full armies around. I just don't know where they are right now. I was concerned at first that they would just bring them by sea to attack Muscat. They do have a fleet over there in the port, so it's a risk, but I don't know where their actual forces are. I'm still going to keep expanding the fleet at Muscat just in case we need it. Gaia, probably safe to defend without a fleet because of its massive 20-unit garrison, so I'm not going to put anything in there. So I ended up deciding I'll just attack the highest stand forces, because that's the weaker of the forces currently surrounding us. We might be able to just wipe them out. And actually, you can see from the balance bar, it looks like we can get an auto-resolve on this just to make this extra fast. The problem was the losses were relatively high, so I thought I'll send in Epaphroditos first. My logic here is that if you send in the weaker army first, that's the army that takes the most casualties in an auto-resolve. So although we actually lose even more men for not having our strongest troops up front, what I'm hoping is that the losses will be amongst all of these Mesopotamian troops who are just level 0, super easy to replenish. So we go ahead with the auto-resolve. The highest stand forces are completely destroyed to the last man, so that's a fantastic result on that side. But actually the casualties were just completely evenly distributed between all of the heavy infantry of both armies. So that was actually a bad move. I should have gone in with Cretheus first. My prediction about how the auto-resolve was going to work was not correct. It's going to need 2 turns now to replenish back to full strength. So we'll just come and sit next to the city. We'll have those 2 armies plus a 20-unit garrison, so Parthiva's going to really struggle to attack, so we're still pretty safe there to wait. Now over with the Carnutes, it's time to attack them once again. Our first attack having been repelled only because I took casualties and wanted to get my men back before the next stage of the assault. Now we're ready to make that assault. Acronius heading south, Heraclides is going to come down from the north. And he actually had enough movement points to get down to the settlement right away. The Carnutes have a single general standing outside. I think if I wait, they probably will start recruiting more forces, so I thought I might as well just besiege them and see what it's like. We have the advantage, so I thought fine, we'll just besiege them. If they come out to fight us, then that's a fight we can win. If they don't, Acronius will show up and then we can just auto-resolve them out of existence. So we'll let that siege continue. Another siege continuing is the one right here against the Nervii, where Bendis is holding them inside Rhugion. They do have a port there, but they can't resupply through it, so they are going to surrender in a couple of turns. So I'm just going to let that keep going and see how the Nervii react. Now I spotted this out the corner of my eye, a very interesting turn of events. Sparta has occupied Trapezos. So much for trying to get the original state of Trapezos back. It seems my ally has decided to make a land invasion against Hyostan, and now they're going to start attacking in that area with Trapezos, I guess, hopefully more happy to be under Sparta than under Hyostan's rule, who knows. Now the Nervii come to me with an outrageous peace treaty. They want me to give them a load of money in exchange for peace, despite me having really been winning this war throughout its entirety. I make my usual offer of will they be my client state. They say no, but they are willing to go for white peace, but I'm not willing to accept white peace, because I feel like we're on the cusp of taking more gains from them. They're going to have to surrender something if they want to get peace from me. Now the Carnutes decide they are going to try and fight Heraclides, coming in with that 1 general and their garrison as reinforcements. Probably should have done that the other way around to get their main force out on the field initially. So Heraclides is going to have to hold them. His army isn't in peak condition, but his troops are experienced. They're elite troops with upgraded equipment. So overall, we're just expecting to slaughter the enemy, so we won't pay too much attention to this fight. But as the fight began, that single general was very exposed, both in terms of his position and in terms of level of clothing, because you can see his men are pretty much without armor there, so I thought we might as well actually go out and take them on. Our men completely the contrast, covered in armor, elite training, big helmets, big shields, and some of them very big pikes. So overall our force is much more equipped to deal with this. That reinforcement army going to take a while to get onto the field and form up, so I thought, well, let's just send all the medium cav and the chariots to go and hit that general right from the beginning. I expected our men to actually just run through him and flatten him, but this unit was a little bit better than I expected, so we hit with the charge. They do resist the charge even with 2 units involved, so we start fighting in melee. The enemy's morale holding well. The chariots just plow through the entire melee. I think chariots just clip through everything, so they just sort of come out the other side without really doing anything in a weird twist. Now we're going to try and get out of that melee. That wasn't the way to do an attack, by the way, on a single enemy unit with 3 of your own. It's supposed to attack from multiple directions, but I was just being lazy and seeing if we could plow through them from the front. So with that failing, we're going to get out of that engagement. The enemy kindly letting almost all my men escape from the fight, and now coming to do it properly, we need to attack from multiple sides. So 1 unit going to charge down this hill into the enemy. The enemy, having taken losses, are now actually not wide enough in terms of their formation to really stop this, so we pretty much surround them with just 1 unit attacking there, but we're going to make life worse for them. We're going to attack with more cavalry. The other light cav, medium cav, sorry, come in, give a javelin volley, which probably hits more of my own men than theirs, and totally seals off the enemy's escape routes, and now they're in real trouble. But of course the chariots just could not resist coming into the battle as well, so I ordered them to charge. And as they arrive, just going through our own men and hitting the enemy rout, and that's going to be an absolute slaughter of their general. So that's a good way to start the fight. The balance bar mysteriously even on this battle replay. Really, I'm not sure what it means there, because we are just gaining more and more of an advantage. There's the general himself, the only one actually come equipped for true fighting, heavy armor there. And as he escapes, one of my cavalrymen manages to catch up with him. It looks like the general was about to kill my cavalryman, but fortunately for me, their general had appendicitis, acute appendicitis, very rapidly, and just fell over and died. So that really helps out the cause. The rest of the battle should be easy. Pain like a knife in my stomach. What a day they chose for our counterattack. These men. Why'd I always end up with these idiots in my company? I'd be throwing mud at the enemy if I didn't convince them to use a damn sword. May the gods help any who try to explain to them how to wear armor. And all this is stacked on top of the fact we're the only ones who showed up to the battle on time. Oh, what is this pain? One can only evacuate their bowels so many times in one morning. Can't be that. Oh, what's that? Damn! They're coming at us right now. Bet these brain-dead freaks will just stand there and let the horses trample them. Never was there such a disrespectful way to die. What is this? Sometime later, the enemy's army comes up to fight with mine, and that's probably not going to go so well for them. They start by approaching under a hail of javelin fire, giving jabs back, but the legionaries do not care. They just take the jabs, most of them not even flinching, and now they're going to go into melee combat against the unit that's worse than them, so that's going to be absolutely fine. A lot of the line in the centre just left open. The enemy intends to attack my pike wall further down instead. Overall, pretty satisfactory frontal engagement here. We'll win if we just leave it, but we do have cavalry to play with. The enemy actually keeping a surprising number of troops in reserve, but most of those reserves were their inferior troops, like these armed townsfolk. So as soon as we break through, we come into engage with them, and that's not going to go very well at all for the poor Gallic troops, who will just be absolutely sliced down by the legionaries. So at this stage in the battle, balance bar still even, but the actual balance of power extremely in my favour. Going to raid their back lines with the chariots and cavalry from earlier, bringing in shock cav from Heracles' main force as well. Heracles himself moving up to view the action, mysteriously covered in blood despite not really taking part in the fight, and all of our infantry just pushing the enemy back now. Not much left for them to do. We just surround their remaining units and slaughter them. It's a heroic victory very quickly. So there we go, that's the last hope of the Carnutes really extinguished in a very rapid and misjudged battle. So right now Heracles just has to finish the survivors, of which there actually are quite a lot, because I just ended the battle and the enemy routed quite quickly. A lot of the enemy are going to escape from that battle. Their general will not be among that number, as you can see there. So although he's down, the garrison still lots of its strength alive. We're going to release our captives and just continue the siege for now. So moving on into the Parthiva and Persian turns, we see Persian forces moving around for the first time, and they put them there right next to their navy. So that's a little bit suspicious that they are going to make a sea attack. We also learn that Eustochus is trying to get married. For some reason the state has to pay for this marriage, and the court nobles, that being the general population really, isn't happy about that for some reason. But anyway, moving on, our spy is going to have a quick look around the Persian lands for other forces, but here's the main focus. Our main stack, put right next to their navy, so it could sail across to attack Maskat or Gahaya if it wants. Smaller army there, just sneaking into Egypt's territory, not really worried about what they're going to do. Nothing else being spotted on the way. So that means our little battlefront with Cretheus is probably going to be quite safe. I need to decide what to do with these troops now. They're pretty much back to full strength. I decided to fortify the border with Parthiva and now wait a turn so that Epaphroditos can finish replenishing his army. So it's just basically a standoff with 2 stacks versus 2 stacks just sitting on that border. Now for the Carnutes, Acronius is going to come in to support the final battle. Heracles can now do an assault on the town and we have a gigantic advantage. So we'll just finish off the garrison army, still surprisingly alive after the battle, but not going to be anything in the face of 2 fully trained Massalian armies. So down they go. That's the last of the Carnutes, their last settlement at least. We're going to occupy it. It's part of Celtica, which we've already started occupying with the Babracte much earlier in the campaign. So we'll need to start doing some conversions to get that province, region, helping the balance of the province, which right now is a little bit difficult to control. Now, as for the forces, Acronius, I decided he's going to go and hunt down the last of the Carnutes, which is this raiding army in our territory, the survivors of the battle at Lemanum. So he's going to attack those, and after that he'll probably hang around because the Namnates and the Gallic Confederation have been sitting in our territory for so long. I'm starting to get suspicious of them. And now we get a sally from the Nervii at Rugion, but actually the Cimbri come in with a full stack to support, so it's now our 3 armies versus their 1.5. Balance of power so far in our favour. I thought, let's just auto-resolve these Nervii out of existence. We will lose a quarter of our men, which is a little bit steep, I think, but overall not too bad. It even looks like we lost more than that because the Cimbri didn't take all that many losses in the battle, so not actually that good as auto-resolves go, losing experienced troops, which is always a shame, but of course we probably don't actually need those troops anymore. We've pretty much dominated the region. The Carnute is going to make it easier for us by bringing their raiding force in to attack Lebanon again. You can see they've hired all the mercenaries they could there to join their army to make it more powerful, but it's still not powerful enough. They're going to go right down on a quick auto-resolve with aggressive stance that totally slaughters the remainder of their army. So with them all gone, we're going to release the captives, but the faction will still be destroyed. So that is all good news. The Namnates and Gallic Confederation are still hanging around there, really hoping they'll go away at some point, and no special moves from Parthiva or Persia. So at the start of the next turn, we learn the Carnutes are destroyed, and Rugion surrenders, now out of food. I considered liberating it again, which I did do in the past, but actually we're going to occupy it. Again, we've started taking this province already, so it's a handy capture in the long run. Yes, some of my advisors were wondering if I was going to restore the Rugii. Those advisors need to go on the same journey of discovery that Heraclides has completed. Even he realizes now that the harmony he so craves will only come when we all live under the same rules. And the rules of war have dictated that those rules will be ours. Difficult for even a hardcore Republican like him to see the issue with a little pacification of the barbarian tribes. So yes, Rugion will step in line, joined soon by the rest of those people the Nervii tribe dominates. They will doubtless rejoice at how I make a preferable ruler to those fools who sent their menfolk to die on our spear points. I will one day return to the city with all of the North civilized and at my side. With the battle for Rugion won, Eustochus is going to bring his forces south. There are plenty more Nervii targets, and now there really aren't any Nervii military units around to worry about. We're free to make attacks against them. What they do have are these navies out in the sea, which are taking attrition right now, and of course the navy right outside Rugion. So if they banded together, they probably could make an assault on Rugion. Bendis is going to have to stay there for now, which is handy anyway, since he does need to replenish, and being in a settlement speeds that up. Now for Artemios and the Daemons, he is now able to make the very long march all the way up towards Sarai, and as we get close we see a high-stand general standing outside, and that's going to be quite useful for us. It's got a 20-unit garrison inside, so a hefty force defending it. But of course, if we just attack this random general, they are now drawn out into a field battle where they won't be able to gain any defenders advantage, which is great, especially because they have so many archers there, and an attack on those walls would be difficult. So we're going to fight this one out, the enemy claiming to have a giant advantage, but usually that doesn't mean much in the face of a Greek-style army. So as the battle starts, I'm immediately rotating my starting formation, because although the enemy's general is in front of us, all of the enemy's reinforcements actually came in slightly behind and to the side of our starting position. So we needed to rotate around, but once we'd done that, the enemy were so close that we could immediately start just showering them with arrows just as they came onto the map. Now what I was thinking was the enemy might turn and come and engage me, but actually they only did this with their trailing units, their missile units, so they were going to fire back, but all of their melee infantry just carried on, and I'm going to keep setting up my formation, just taking the arrows for now, knowing it won't do all that much damage. So my slow to form up hoplite lines are going to hold me back a little bit, because ideally I would charge forward and stop the enemy while they're out of formation, but as all those melee units are just running across the face of me, I'm not really ready to go and stop them, so we're just going to hit them with ranged units. They're actually trying to go and join their general, so you can see the vague direction they're trying to move. So if I move a little bit further forward, once we're ready, we will be able to catch them, and their general actually at the back there coming closer. So over here it's just going to start with a battle between the enemy's missile units and the couple of units I've prepared to attack them. I'm going to move in 2 units of swords to charge them from the front, and then riding in behind them will be 2 units of medium cav. The swords of course won't do any damage at all in theory, because the enemy just turns and runs, as you can see, but now they're going to run into the path of my cavalry charge. Unfortunately that charge really didn't do anything. I expected them to get more in amongst the ranks of those light troops, but they seem to stop right at the edge of the blob. Still doing good morale damage there, and they'll start hacking their way in, plus it gives a chance for the swordsmen to catch up. Further along the line, some of their melee troops starting to engage with me and their general, bypassing the unit I sent to intercept him and making a very ineffective attack on the flank of that pike phalanx. He seemed to stop at the last second with his charge, so it didn't really do anything, and now he's going to be engaged in close quarters combat with those spearmen, so that's not going to help. Where the enemy's melee troops are engaging me, my javs and archers are going to give me some close support that's going to make the fight extra easy, even though he probably would have won even without them. So already we're seeing routes, lots of routes among the enemy's lighter troops as well, but the enemy have cleverly brought in some spears here, so this is a good move from the AI. That's going to force my cav to get out of the engagement, but my swords are going to press ever deeper into it, killing more light units and coming in to engage the spears of fight. They will be able to win there, so still positive overall. At this stage, we're gaining quite an advantage. Really, it's just a case of applying my superior force to actually bother hitting all the enemy units and bringing them down. So, one by one, we sort it out. Their general fights on now with Artemios personally, who's moved in with his royal hoplites to bring down those cavalry. The whole blob, under a constant rain of arrows as well, going to be reducing their health the whole time. The pike phalanx sneaking in on the flank to do extra damage as well. That general in big trouble, and most of his army in trouble as well. A lot of it routing away. Just need to hunt them down and finish off the ones who haven't routed. They are going to be quite able to rout off the field with a lot of their numbers intact, because a lot of the units are near the edge of the map, so that's going to reduce the damage this battle does to the enemy army. But it's still going to be enough. One unit there staying in melee, whilst the rest of their comrades seem to have fallen back to a position further back in the map. But as they see their last unit in combat rout, they rout as well, and the battle ends. You can see that massive cloud of arrows that was about to impact their last unit in combat there. So they routed at a very opportune moment. So there we go, a decisive victory. We've done good damage to the garrison at Sarai. Let's have a quick look at how much, because if we've done enough, then it should be a case of just auto-resolving our way inside. The Daemons took negligible losses, the enemy losing half their garrison, their general actually getting away with it there according to this, but that's not going to be a big issue. We'll finish him off later on. So there we go, that's those forces dispatched. So now we have just enough movement points to move a tiny bit closer to the city and start the siege. The balance bar super far in our favour, delightful. We're going to go in with an auto-resolve in order to finish off the remaining forces inside. They're gone, Sarai captured very easily. So that was very useful that Gen was outside, because otherwise we would have had to wait at least one turn of siege before we'd been able to take out the garrison. It probably would have taken 2 to 3 turns in total to take the city, but actually we've taken it as soon as we arrived. Very nice. So that's Sarai occupied. We can have a little look at the landscape around it. We do have a hostile border to the north here. It's the hordes of the steppe, but the other daemons of Polymus from Arche-Bosphorus are currently marching up towards them, so perhaps that hostile border is about to disappear. The next settlement down to the south is quite far away, another higher stand target, so a valid place to attack, but in between, a very interesting factor, a path of main forces hanging around, so far from their regular territory, and not being used in the war with Cretius' forces where they're really needed. Quite a strange choice, but anyway, we'll see how this all continues next time. Ayestan had lost the majority of its armed forces in fierce clashes with the Massalians, an outcome it had not predicted. They had failed to realize that having a professional army doesn't mean victory will be easy in cases where the enemy does as well. So with their territory starting to disappear and their prospects for a counterattack slim, they were under pressure to arrange peace before the situation deteriorated any further. But the leading opinion in the king's court was akin to doubling down. pledging to stay in the war for the slim chance that they could recoup their losses at a future time. How that would happen was a question largely left in the hands of their priests. It seemed that between Cretheus and Artemios, the Armenians would disappear entirely.